I've seen men win wars and lose their wealth. They mastered the battlefield, but not the budget. They gave orders to armies, but obeyed every impulse in their pocket. This is not victory. This is a fracture of command. If you cannot govern your money will govern your fate. And when war breaks out, internally or externally, you will have nothing left to fund your survival. I do not fear poverty. I fear waste. I fear the undisciplined hand that spends without mission. I fear the appetite disguised as need, the luxury disguised as leverage, the ego disguised as investment. That is how generals fall, not in combat, but in comfort. You must command your money like you command your army, with a strategy, with foresight, with respect for terrain, timing, and troop morale. Your coins are soldiers. Send them with purpose or watch them desert you. Do not simply save. That is too passive. Saving without intention is like parking troops in a valley with no plan. They will grow restless, and you will call it emergency spending. No, you must position your money. Just as you flank an enemy, flank your expenses. Know the strongholds, rent, food, health. Know the ambushes, subscription traps, debt, status seeking. I do not hoard gold. I deploy it. Each coin I place is an agent in a longer campaign. A campaign for independence. A campaign for leverage. A campaign to never be enslaved by the price of bread. Some ask me, what should I invest in? That is the wrong question. Ask first, what is my campaign? What is the terrain of this market? What is the morale of my discipline? Then, and only then, may you draw your financial sword and strike. Let others chase get-rich-quick schemes. They are warriors who swing without formation. They strike before seeing. They retreat at the first loss. You are not like them. You are a commander, and a commander moves not with emotion, but calculation. Would you go into war with no map, no scouts, no reserves? Then why spend your money that way? I've seen peasants with no land become powerful because they understood one thing. Every coin is a decision, and every decision is a declaration of war or peace with your future. Before I move, I wait. Before I spend, I study. This is not hesitation, it is precision. Your money must be placed with the same clarity as troops on a battlefield. You do not scatter soldiers for convenience. You deploy them where they create pressure, protection, or progress. Do the same with your dollars. The battlefield of wealth is invisible. It lies in your habits. In that moment before you swipe the card. In that urge to prove something with a purchase. In that decision to delay understanding your finances. Not because you cannot, but because you're afraid of what you'll see. And so I ask you, would a general ever close his eyes to the position of his army? Would he delegate the map to an enemy and say, "Just tell me where I stand"? No. Then why do you do this with your money? Most people do not manage wealth. They react to it. They chase it when it runs. They beg it to stay. They blame it when it disappears. But blame is not strategy. Blame is what the defeated cling to. A strategist takes responsibility, even when he inherits a broken economy, even when his past self has spent recklessly, even when the odds are unbalanced, he still takes command. He says, "These are the resources I have. This is the terrain I face. Now let me build an advantage." Control does not come from more income. It comes from more clarity. If you cannot manage $100, you will mismanage $10,000. Because the issue is not scale, it is alignment. If your values, vision, and systems are scattered, then your money will scatter too. I've watched leaders try to solve internal disorder with external gain. They think, once I make more, I'll fix the chaos. But war teaches us this. Chaos does not obey the size of your army. It only obeys structure. If your spending has no hierarchy, if your savings have no shelter, if your decisions have no doctrine, then you are fighting blindfolded, with gold slipping from your hands. Money must be given a mission. Without a mission, it will betray you. It will run to distractions. It will serve your fears instead of your future. And one day, you will look around and realize you won every argument, but lost your financial freedom. This is not about being rich. This is about being unshakable. In war, I do not crave abundance. I crave resilience. That is true wealth. And you must build it like a fortress, layer by layer, brick by brick, until even when everything falls, you stand. Your wealth is not measured by what you show, it's measured by what you can survive. True power is silent. It's the emergency fund no one sees, the second stream of income that doesn't need applause, the investments that grow quietly while others broadcast losses. I do not announce my strength, I prepare it. The enemy of financial command is not ignorance, it's indulgence. It's the belief that because you earned, you deserve to spend. But reward without discipline creates weakness. Even soldiers rest after victory, but they do not drop their shield. Too many civilians build wealth for the weekend and lose it before Monday. You must divide your money like divisions of an army. One unit defends, the savings. One unit scouts, the education fund, the tools to grow. One unit attacks, the investments that build future strength. And one unit heals, the spending that restores your spirit, but never at the expense of your structure. Do not be ashamed of budgeting. Only fools see boundaries as burdens. A great wall is not a cage, it's a strategy. Every line in your budget is a formation, a line that says, this far, no further. It is a weapon against the enemy called regret. In every army, there are deserters. In every wallet, there are leaks. But I plug the holes before the storm. You must inspect your money like a captain inspects his troops. Not once a year, not when panic hits, but as a routine, as a form of discipline, as an act of war against complacency. Let others mock minimalism. Let them laugh at your simplicity. But I tell you this, a light army moves faster. A lean army wastes less. The goal is not to carry everything. The goal is to reach the end without falling apart. I've watched men spend thousands to look rich, only to grow old with debts they can't escape. They fed the illusion, not the mission. And when the mission came, when their child was sick, when the job was lost, when the world shut down, they had no troops left to fight. That is not a lack of luck. That is a lack of leadership. You are the general of your household, your children, your spouse, your future self. They are counting on your command. So stop saying, I'm bad with money. That is not humility. It's surrender. And I do not train men to surrender. You do not need to know everything. You just need to start leading. Lead your coins, your choices, your course, and the war for freedom will begin to tilt in your favor. Some people wait for a raise to begin their discipline, but the wise know the discipline comes first and the raise follows, not just in income, but in capacity. If you cannot handle scarcity with order, you will only multiply chaos with abundance. Do not envy the man with the luxury car. Envy the man who could buy 10, but walks away without trembling. That is command. That is power over desire, not power through display. And power over desire builds empires, because the man who needs nothing controls everything. You must look at every expense and ask, does this make me stronger or slower? Does this purchase extend my campaign or end it early? If it builds your capacity to lead, to serve, to grow, it is investment. If it only quiets your insecurity for a moment, it is surrender. Even in war, we ration supplies, not because we're weak, but because the long game requires endurance. So ration your dopamine, ration your scrolling, ration the things that make you feel rich but leave you weaker. That is how warriors live, not chasing comfort, but choosing consequence. People say money is emotional. I disagree. People are emotional. Money is neutral, until you hand it your chaos. The man who cannot sit with discomfort will use money as medicine. And like medicine wrongly used, it creates dependence, not healing. Train yourself to act from clarity, not craving. The battlefield rewards those who stay in formation under fire, and the market is no different. The moment you break ranks, chasing a trend, spending from boredom, investing from greed, you've given up your strategy. Every coin you touch is a test, not of math, but of mastery. Not of how much you have, but how much you honor. Would you ever dishonor your troops, send them into an unwinnable battle? Then why send your paycheck into habits that slaughter your future? This is the shift. Stop thinking like a consumer. Start thinking like a commander. The consumer asks, "What do I want right now?" The commander asks, "What does the mission need?" Mission-first living creates freedom, because freedom is not doing whatever you want. It's doing what must be done, on your terms. You were not born to chase sales. You were born to move like a strategist, to allocate resources with precision, to retreat with wisdom, to strike with patience, and to build a life that holds, even when the world shakes. If your finances collapse at the smallest setback, you were never building wealth. You were building a house of cards. And no, that's not the economy's fault. It's not your parents. It's not bad luck. It's the absence of a war plan. Every general studies terrain before battle, and your financial terrain is no different. Study your income. Study your fixed costs. Study the interest rates that eat quietly at your flank like termites in a fortress wall. Study the taxes that retreat more soldiers from your camp than any enemy. If you do not know the battlefield, you will keep losing in the same places and call it fate. I do not fear making mistakes, but I fear repeating them. And most people's money problems aren't new, they're just rehearsed. Overdraft again, late payments again, impulse buys again. They call it life. I call it undisciplined command. There is no shame in not knowing, but there is danger in not learning. When I lose a battle, I rewrite the strategy. When most lose money, they rewrite the excuse. That is the difference between a survivor and a strategist. People say money is stressful, but that's only true when you let it roam wild. Untrained troops destroy their own camp, and untrained finances destroy their own future. But once you bring structure, order, rhythm, stress fades, because now you're not reacting to fire. You are directing it. Your budget is not a cage. It is a formation. It is the blueprint of your intentions, the schedule of your strikes, the shape of your discipline. And yes, it requires attention. But every empire requires architects, the lazy hope for wealth, the disciplined build it, brick by brick, blind to applause. Do not wait for motivation. Motivation is wind. Discipline is architecture. One comes and goes. The other holds through storms. I would rather you start with 5 coins and a strategy than 5,000 coins and a storm of confusion, because one leads to freedom, the other to flames. This is not about restriction. It's about respect. The same way a soldier maintains his blade, you must maintain your finances. Not because it's easy, but because one day it will be necessary. And when that day comes, the unprepared will panic. You will not, because you trained for this. They will call you extreme. They'll say you think too much about money, that you calculate every step, that you miss out on fun. Let them speak. You are not here to impress the crowd. You are here to build a command that lasts. And history remembers the disciplined, not the distracted. I've seen men fight for freedom in war, then sell it in peace, one luxury at a time. They thought liberation came from the enemy, but it comes from the inside. From the quiet moments when you choose discomfort today so your family doesn't suffer tomorrow. That's not sacrifice, that's leadership. You cannot outsource command. You can hire accountants, you can consult advisors, but the final orders must come from you, because no one knows your vision like you do, and no one pays the cost of your laziness but you. Study your cash flow like you study the movement of enemy troops. Every pattern tells a story. Every unexpected charge reveals a blind spot. Every automatic payment is a soldier already deployed. Are they still needed? Are they draining your strength? You must inspect your systems. Even the best generals audit their ranks, build buffers, build reserves, not because you're afraid, but because you're wise. Because you know war isn't a question of if, it's when. And when crisis hits, a recession, a layoff, a storm, your foresight becomes your fortress. People say, live a little. I say, live deliberately, live with a plan, live with resources positioned to support your long game. Because true living is not about what you consume, it's about what you can command, your time, your energy, your options. I've watched people buy things they don't need to impress people who aren't watching while burying their future under payments. That is not life. That is slavery in disguise. I do not reject enjoyment, but I separate it from identity. I enjoy what strengthens me, not what distracts me, not what numbs me. Pleasure should be seasoning, not the meal. And when I do spend, I do so with honor. I look at every dollar like a warrior. Has it earned its mission? Does it serve the campaign? Does it bring peace or pride? This is the way. A general does not live in chaos. He lives in readiness, and so must you. You do not need more tools. You need more clarity. People chase apps, spreadsheets, gurus, but no weapon works without the will to wield it. And most fail not for lack of knowledge, but for lack of strategy they trust enough to follow in silence. You must craft your system like a formation. It must be simple enough to follow under fire, but strong enough to withstand surprise. A financial system is not art, it's architecture. It holds the weight of your future. So build it on truth, not trends. Here's what I ask you to build. A spending ritual, review weekly. A reserve fund, store 6 months of breath. A growth plan, where does your money multiply? An elimination process, what costs steal from your campaign? And a freedom number, how much do you need to choose your own terms? If you do not name the mission, you will serve someone else's. If you do not define enough, you will always be at war with more. I do not believe in luck. I believe in leverage. And money, when properly commanded, is pure leverage. It gives you time. It gives you options. It gives you pause when others must panic. But leverage can also break the untrained hand. Debt is a blade, sharp enough to win the battle, dangerous enough to end the general. Do not wield it without a strategy. Do not borrow from tomorrow to soothe today. If you do, you will pay twice, once in interest, once in regret. I've seen the strongest men defeated not by war, but by wages, by the job they cannot leave, by the bills they cannot dodge, by the lifestyle they thought was winning. They built walls of status and called them kingdoms, only to find themselves trapped inside. I tell you, a man is not wealthy because he earns much. He is wealthy because he needs little, and every coin he commands moves with purpose. This is financial warfare, not against others, against your former self, against the mindset that spends to feel worthy, against the emotions that buy peace instead of building it. And if you win that war, not once, but daily, then no matter your income, you will move like a commander. Command begins in the mind, before it touches the hand, before it touches the coin. If your mind is disorganized, your money will follow suit. A scattered strategy leads to scattered savings. A foggy purpose leads to impulsive purchases. So before you write a budget, write a belief. I am responsible for every resource under my command. You must stop outsourcing blame. The economy may shift, the market may fall, but your alignment, your preparation, your reactions, those are yours to lead. And a true commander doesn't wait for the conditions to be ideal. He adapts the formation, not the mission. You say, it's hard to track everything. Then track less, but with more clarity. You say, I don't know where to begin. Begin by facing your truth. Open the statements. See the damage. There is no shame in the numbers. There is only strategy, or the lack of it. I do not fear starting small. I fear staying undisciplined. You can begin with one jar, one rule, one change. Because control isn't built in a weekend. It's built in the morning you skip the impulse. In the evening you say no to comfort and yes to clarity. It's forged in silence. But it echoes loudly when others fall and you remain standing. Your freedom is not a gift. It is a fortress. And that fortress is made from the stones of your daily choices. When you say no to the unnecessary, you are saying yes to your command. When you delay pleasure to expand your power, you are winning a war few even see. Others will live from direct deposit to dopamine. You will live by design, because wealth is not about how much you make. It's about how much you master. And mastery is not a feeling. It is a rhythm, a ritual, a relentless alignment between your values and your actions. Let others mock your caution. Let them flash their purchases. But remember, camouflage is not command. Many who look rich are just hiding their surrender. I choose silence. I choose strength that speaks only when needed. I choose systems over signals. I choose growth over gratification. Because one day, when the storms arrive, and they always arrive, they will wonder why you're still standing. And you will answer them with calm, not noise. Because I led my money like an army, not like a child with candy, but like a general with purpose. There will be days when doubt creeps in, when your efforts feel slow, when the world tempts you with shortcuts and flashes of gold. But that is when the real war begins, not outside, but inside. Because strategy is easy in calm. It is loyalty in chaos that defines a commander. In those moments, return to your campaign. Look at your ledger not as a list of numbers, but as a record of your leadership. Each line is a formation. Each reduction of waste is a quiet victory. Each act of restraint is a shield raised. And every time you resist the pull of the easy win, you become harder to defeat. Your wealth is not a number. It is a force. And like any force, it must be directed. Without direction, fire burns the village. With direction, fire feeds the army. Your money, your time, your habits, they are fire. Direct them or be devoured by them. If you must retreat, do so with strategy. There is no shame in stepping back when necessary. When expenses rise, when income falls, when life interrupts your plan, pause, reposition, redeploy. That is not failure. That is command adapting. Do not measure your worth by the balance in your account. Measure it by the alignment between what you say and what you do. The man with little who governs it well is richer than the one with much who is ruled by it. Governance is wealth, because governance gives you choices, and choice is the foundation of power. Teach this to your children, not just in words, but in patterns. Let them see you say no. Let them see you wait. Let them see you build. That is legacy. Not what you leave behind, but what you live now. I do not ask for perfection. I ask for position. Because even when you fall out of line, a well-trained army knows how to recover. So too with your finances. If you overspend, recalibrate. If you forget your strategy, return to it without shame. The general does not abandon the war because of one lost battle. He regathers his troops and sharpens his blade. You are in a war not for wealth alone, but for dignity, for sovereignty, for the right to live without begging for time, without obeying every market whim, without fearing the price of freedom. And you win this war not by out-earning everyone, but by out-strategizing your former self. There is a moment in every campaign when the battle goes quiet, not because it is over, but because the enemy is watching, waiting, hoping you relax, hoping you slip, hoping you forget why you began. That moment is now. This is where most fail, not in the storm, but in the calm after it. They survive a financial scare, then drift back into the habits that caused it. They treat discipline like a diet, temporary, conditional, but you are not dieting, you are transforming, and transformation is permanent. A real general never stands down, he stands ready. And readiness isn't flashy, it's quiet, it's uncelebrated, it's in the grocery list, the canceled subscription, the notebook where you review your accounts, the boring routine that makes your life unbreakable. I live below my means, not because I fear scarcity, but because I worship agility. The man who needs little moves faster. He sees clearer. He buys time, not toys. And time is the greatest wealth of all. When others panic at inflation, you will adapt because your house is in order. When others lose jobs, you will shift, pivot, strike again, because you weren't dependent on one source. When the world burns, you will be the one standing at the map, calm, collected, ready to move. This is the final truth. You are not just earning money. You are building a life that cannot be taken from you, a strategy that outlives you, a fortress of thought, not just of things. Let them chase more. You chase mastery. Let them flaunt. You build in silence. Let them live for the weekend. You live for the mission, because you are no longer the spender. You are no longer the follower. You are no longer the soldier waiting for orders. You are the commander of your money, of your decisions, of your life. And from this day forward, you move with the weight of someone who understands every dollar is a soldier, and every soldier deserves a war worth fighting.